Yeah, I mean, I have this conversation a lot because I have that's one of my qualifications is to talk about diabetes, and many people come in and they might have an average. Let's say it's 95 to be where your average is, sort of 95, but it's like this. It's peaks and troughs. No, and you don't want that. I mean, and they'll say, but my average is 95. And I say, yes, but your top is like 160. And at some point you're 65, and that's not good. And guess what? They're on carbs. I mean, it's always those people that, oh, I'm hungry by 11 o'clock. I'm hungry by 1 o'clock. Then I'm hungry by 3 o'clock. And this is what upsets me sort of more broadly about the HbA1c is it's not a good marker of anything, really. It's not now we've got continual glucose monitors. Now we've got those, and we can get them to more and more people. And the finger prick stuff you can get for £20 in the UK. I mean, it's not expensive. It's so easy to monitor your blood glucose and see whether it's going up and down, up and down, up and down, or it's constant. And I genuinely would be quite happy with someone who had gone from spiking like that to a level of 100. If it was 100 all the way through, I'd think, oh, yeah, I'm much happier with that. I think it is the highly elevated blood sugar spikes that actually are the problem. It's not so much the average, but the damage you're doing 5-6 times a day. Who's got a question? Was that Selena?
I asked a little bit about salt yesterday, but then I looked at my Himalayan salt and it says it's made in a factory with celery, blah, 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 blah. And I'm wondering, do I need to chuck it and get one that doesn't, or does it really not matter? It's just a disclaimer just in case.
Yeah, it's probably just a disclaimer, Selena. We produce a lot of products in regards to the electrolytes, the exogenous ketones, MCT powders, all this sort of stuff. The factories are incredibly strict in regards to compliances and certifications. The chance of cross-contamination within these factories is nigh on impossible, but because within the factory, other lines will utilize ingredients such as gluten, for example, we have to, by law, put it on our label. So I would, to be honest, I would just ignore it. The chance of that cross-contamination is incredibly small. Pink Himalayan salt is pink Himalayan. There are different types of different degrees, ranging from like A down to D, I think, but it's salt ultimately is salt. My preference would be Celtic, but there's nothing wrong with a pink Himalayan. We sell it. We sell pink Himalayan. We use pink Himalayan in the electrolytes, although we are swapping over to a Celtic sea salt from the next production. So always improving, trying to.
What made you change to Celtic salt then? What was the rationale?
I believe it to be better than pink Himalayan, fractionally. So in that pursuit for perfection, we've decided it is more expensive as well. Yeah, we've decided to make that change. I mean, we could put a cheaper source of salt in, but it defeats the object. It defeats the object of having that quality product while we are living such strict lifestyles. But yeah, it's that constant pursuit for perfection.
Yeah, it's an odd mix though. Did Selena say there's celery in?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a factory that processes celery, for example. It doesn't mean that it's being used on the same line. So what we find with we use a factory. So we send all the ingredients into the factory and they package all of this stuff for us. They put it into a big mixing bowl, if you like, for what better term, in simplistic terms. Mix it all together and then they box it for us, seal it and send it to us. So we don't own the factory. We just technically borrow that factory for that production. Each time that line before we use it is completely cleaned, washed down, and it takes an awful long time. And once we've done the production, the same thing happens again. Now, we've been told by the factory, because of the consistency of the powder, because it's a fine powder, it floats in the air, it sticks to everything within the air, the machinery, all sorts of stuff. and it's a nightmare to clean. So it takes an awful long time to clean all this machinery down. So we can only use their factory once every 8 weeks. So we have to produce enough to last at least 8 weeks within that time. And the factory, they go to town on cleaning every item and part of that machinery. It is absolutely spotless. So the chance of any cross-contamination is, you've got more chance in the supermarket, considerably more. So I personally, I wouldn't be concerned as long as it's coming from a quality factory. But most factories these days, the regulations and certification is so high. The chance of cross-contamination, I should imagine, would be negligible.
And I am trying something here, which is your cherry berry.
Woohoo! The good stuff.
It's not as nice as your lemon and orange, but this is my first try of it.
I prefer it. I prefer the cherry berry.
Do you really? Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay. So for those that didn't see yesterday's live stream, we were talking about astaxanthin, wasn't we, as an antioxidant, which is in your cherry berry, I think.
It's in all the electrolytes, yeah. Lemon, orange, and cherry berry.
And I was trying to remember all the stats, but I can't. I've forgotten. But I was very impressed with the, well, you might know, 800 times stronger than CoQ10, 550 times stronger than vitamin E, and 65 times more powerful than vitamin C as an antioxidant. So it was new to me. I mean, it genuinely was a compound I'd not come across. So I was really impressed. I don't know if anyone's been seeing the Oreo experiment, with the lowering your LDL. Has anyone seen that?
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. Goodness me. Is that really very good, encouraging people though to have Oreos if it does work?
Well, I think it's actually to make people think, isn't it? It's deliberately provocative. You don't know about this, Rich, I'm assuming. Oh, it's Nick Horowitz, I think his name is, or something like that. And Sean Baker is right now recording with Joe Rogan, a podcast. But yesterday he leaked a little bit of the research, which I think is deliberate, by the way, but let's say it is a leak. And this guy, Nick, is doing his third year in his medical training, and he's got a PhD in biology, metabolic biology. And he's been doing a study. And one of the studies that he designed and he's been going through was lowering his LDL. And he lowered it from 384 down to about 117. And all he did was add 12 Oreo cookies a day. And now he's done a washout period, and he's now going to get his LDL to go back up, and then he's going to go on a statin. And he's going to see what happens. And basically, it's to get the headlines, but to get really people talking about, is LDL actually problematic? Because if you can get a packet of biscuits every day and lower your LDL, and it can,
yeah. Well, the thing with these biscuits is the polyols. It's the vegetable and seed oils. The polyols confuse the body. They compete for cholesterol, and it's actually a toxin. The body will try to excrete the polyphenols. It's not human form of cholesterol, and the body will hold around 2%. Any higher, and it can lead to a condition called cytosterolemia, which is fatal. But anything with vegetable oil in will artificially lower your cholesterol, especially your LDL. But LDL, as we know, is healing. LDL heals the body. LDL repairs the body. And my overall cholesterol is double figures. My LDL is 8 point something. And I wish it were higher. Somebody, in fact, it was Dr. Jen Unwin. I had a call with Jen Unwin recently, and her cholesterol was considerably higher than mine, and I was devastated.
Yes, you want higher. I mean, this is the thing that's quite funny, is in our community, we all want much higher LDL. Right. Helen's asked a question. I was saying to Robbie, if you've got a question, please put your hand up or just write it in the chat. But Helen's already got one. What do you think of thyroid complex supplements?
Yeah, it gets incredibly difficult when we start looking at supplementation, because almost everything that we need comes from nature. Now, what's caused thyroid issues in the first place? And do you have a thyroid issue is the other question, because thyroid hormone is what we measure, but we fail to take into account thyroid stimulating hormone. Now, if this is low, then the amount of thyroid that you have in your body is fine. There's only an issue when it comes to thyroid problems when TSH is elevated, because the body's actively trying to increase thyroid hormone. But there's a lifetime of abuse that comes from leading up to this in regards to diet, health, well-being, and nutrition, particularly lack of saturated fats. We've been told all our life not to consume saturated fats, but saturated fats are essential for the production of cholesterol, and essential for the production of hormones. Cholesterol is essential for life. It's made, every cell in the body is made of cholesterol. It's essential for cell formation, cell communication, nutrient absorption, nutrient transportation, healing, and the production of hormones. So I think if we are trying to heal and repair the body, the keto carnivore type lifestyle is probably the first port of call. I'm not against supplementation, but I believe that many people that I work with seem to over supplement with lots of compounds, maybe when they don't need to. I think one that is probably more important than the others would be iodine. Although we can get this from living a ketogenic carnivore lifestyle. Selenium is another one, which again we can get from our food, and is found in the electrolytes also. But the type of foods that we can consume are the heart, liver, kidney, chicken. All of these are high in things like selenium and iodine that we need. Anything to add to that, Steve?
Yeah, loads. I mean, Helen's very kindly, I don't think you've spotted in the chat that Helen has put her figures in. So the TPO antibodies are 394, so that seems more problematic than the TG. The thyroglobulin is essential. So in the functional cell of the thyroid globulin is part of the process, and the TPO actually moves everything together. So just looking at your figures there, can injuries increase antibodies like a badly sprained ankle? Yeah, well, yes, you can have a crush injury to your thyroid, you can have an injury to it, but I want to dial back to the antibodies. Is this the first test you've had? No, right, okay. And have they increased a lot in like 6 months?
Helen replies, they have gone down, but then asks, can supplements aggravate
Hi.
things?
Hello. Well, what I found with the bloods is, believe it or not, iodine supplementation could put up the antibodies.
Important note. This is true for some people. Not everybody.
Over the long term, actually, it starts to come down. So I've been very lucky to have 3 or 4 clients who had, huge records. I've been doing this for like 10, not carnivore, but tracking their thyroid. We could actually pinpoint the introduction of iodine as a supplement, because this is only, maybe in the last 4 or 5 years where it's become quite popular. I mean, Ken Berry pushes it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, by the way.
Yeah.
And it did seem to, especially TPO antibodies, go up. The panel you've sent, which is great, but we do need reverse T3. The thing is, as Rich says about the TSH, it's a good yardstick of the feedback of what's coming back to the pituitary gland, actually, not the thyroid, because TSH comes from the pituitary gland.
Yeah.
So what's happening is in the peripheral tissues, your T4 is inactive, and it needs to become T3, which happens in the tissue, happens in the liver and stuff like that. But also, you can find reverse T3 has a huge impact. And I actually coached someone last week about this because it absolutely made sense. You'd never heard of it before, because all the numbers look good-ish, but she still had all the symptoms, bit of fatigue and, weight management was difficult, and heat and temperature management was difficult. And when we looked at reverse T3, it was quite high. I don't know if you've ever had that tested, but the analogy I always use is T3 is like the accelerator. If you imagine on your car, you put your foot on the accelerator. Reverse T3 is like the brake. So you're putting your foot on the accelerator, and you also put your foot on the brake. The stress that causes to the body, and you can imagine what that would do to a car. You'd be like, wow, what are you doing? So reverse T3 can be problematic. And then once you get into if you did track those numbers and it was quite high, there are some things you can do, but I don't want to get into it now because
No.
you know it would take about 30 minutes just to talk about that one thing.
Matthew shares his nutrition with Judy. Thyroid fact sheet.
That's right. So yeah, she just basically goes through certain supplements that people could possibly take while trying to heal their thyroid. So she suggests 12.5 to 50 milligrams of iodine. No need to supplement selenium. You can get that from your fish, your pork, your red meat, whichever meat you fancy. She recommends a salt flush, so 1 additional teaspoon up to 1 tablespoon of Soleil water and 8 ounces of water right after you take iodine. Usually takes clients anywhere from 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons a day. And she says selenium and other minerals, so you can get some magnesium from magnesium spray, but it may not be sufficient for the protocol. Magnesium is bio-individual. I think the protocol recommends magnesium citrate, but of course, we know what citrate can mean for some people, so it might be better to do something like glycinate, you know. Yeah. She also recommends vitamin C. I know there was that discussion the other day of oxalate problems, but it is recommended you take vitamin C when you do take iodine. She recommends lemon water, preferably not supplement, but if you want a supplement, take some slow-release vitamin C at dosages of 250 to 500 milligram. Personally, if it was me, I would go a more natural route. So I would take something like she recommends on there, like Camu or Archarola just because it's more natural and you get the whole complex of vitamin C. As Richard said before, if you just take ascorbic acid, you're missing all the other aspects of vitamin C. So you might develop another problem there. And then just basically supplement the B vitamins. I mean, she recommends the most important ones are B1, B2, and B6, so she sees most of her clients deficient in that. So yeah, it's really iodine, selenium, some extra salt, so Malden sea salt, Celtic sea salt, pink Himalayan, whatever you fancy, really. You can get enough selenium from food. Supplement magnesium because nearly everyone is probably deficient in magnesium, although it might not be necessary. It's not always necessary. And then vitamin C, and then whatever B vitamins that you're sure of. But obviously, it's always best to test and not guess before you follow this protocol. So, yeah,
that's good. I mean, Judy Cho is somebody I have a lot of time for. She's very, very good. She came on the Carnivore-a-thon. What do you think, Rich?
I was just going to butt in there, Steve. Sorry.
Yeah, please do, Sarah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry for the background noise. I'm driving. That's why my video's not on. I'm just listening to you. But yeah, I was gonna butt in there, obviously, because when Richard does his consultations with people, as we do, whether face to face or online, this is obviously the information that he's giving out towards his clients, and we're getting a lot of those micronutrients from the meat and the food that we eat, as well as, like, the only supplementation I take obviously is the electrolytes and MCT powder that we produce. So it's they're a really good source of the magnesium, and even though some people might not need to supplement with the selenium, but I'm quite happy that it's in the electrolytes and that we take that, and I have the extra and the vitamins that are in there. I don't know if I can go off track a minute, because like I've been to work today now, and I've been reading a bit about B12 and B6 vitamins, and the use within Alzheimer's, and the other the other tests they're looking at for long-standing patients with Alzheimer's. So I wonder if I wanted to sidetrack his attention, basically. Wanted to see if Rich wanted to share his views on the methylation and the way, you know, that they're going about testing the epigenetics for the Alzheimer's lately. Sorry to hijack you.
So they use a test called the MTHFR test, which probably isn't the best test to use. They look at defects within the gene, the MTHFR gene. MTHFR enzyme works with things like vitamin B6, pyridoxine, B9 folate, and B12 cobalamin in order to create methylfolate, which breaks down homocysteine. And it's homocysteine that is one of the main driving factors in regards to Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. So it's this reduction of homocysteine that's going to help with that. But when our MTHFR gene is damaged, our ability to create the methylfolate hinders the body's ability to lower homocysteine. But histamine would be a better test to go for, because histamine needs to be methylated. So not homocysteine, histamine. So you'd be better off testing the histamine levels to give you a better idea, because even people with the MTHFR defect can still create methylation, which, I mean, we've touched something that we could probably spend a good bit of time going into, so maybe it's something we can come back to next week. But
definitely,
methylation is responsible for thousands of chemical reactions within the body, and this whole thing with MTHFR enzyme working with folate, B6 and B12 to create the methylfolate.
Obviously, I've probably mentioned to you, like, I've put my mum already. My mum is taking extra B12, folic acid, and folate rather, and omega-3s, to be able to you know, prevent. I'm trying to prevent her Alzheimer's, or even, you know, just dementia as a whole. But yeah, there we are. Sorry to hijack your like 5 minutes left. But
what I would add to that really quickly is you probably need to look at her diet as well, because let's break it back. I know you're supplementing with these compounds of pyridoxine, B6, B9, folate, and B12. So these can be blocked by as much, and iron is another important factor. These can be blocked by as much as 100% by things like lectins and phytic acid within the diet.
Definitely.
So it's these cofactors that are involved. And again, the production of the neurotransmitters, all of this are contributing factors in regards to this increase in homocysteine and neuroinflammation in the brain. So I think it's not always just enough to supplement with something. Especially when it comes to folate, because it's the supplementation version of folate isn't a true form. A lot of these other supplemented forms, they come from minerals that are mined in the ground. They don't come from animal.
But that's the trouble, I think, is trying to with the elderly person who doesn't eat very much at all, and then hasn't got a really good appetite, and hasn't got a good varied diet, and is totally, you know, doesn't eat like I eat, but just trying to get some goodness into them to prevent, you know, these things going forward.
And if you look at most grandparents, for example, you know, they think they eat healthy in regards to, you know, their brown bread, and they wake up in the morning and they eat muesli or something for breakfast. All of these compounds contain these phytic acids and lectins, which they instantly stop in the body from processing any of the proteins that they do consume. And what we are told as a society is to avoid saturated fats, which are again are essential, and to avoid the protein. The key is to try to wean them off these grains, the cereals, and get them to eat more animal proteins. But that isn't just enough either, because the lectins and phytic acid can block the absorption of the nutrients within that protein by as much as 100%. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, these dementia, they are 99% preventable. Even beyond that, only 1% of these neurological conditions is caused by genetic defects. And I would argue that even some of these could probably be overridden, if you like, through quality food and nutrition. I think we've tapped into something that we could probably do an entire episode on.